You press your foreheads together affectionately. Cove happily looked back at you before he bent his torso, so that he was in a position more over you. He kissed you and ran his tongue along the bottom of your lip. You kissed him back eagerly, encouraged further. And, last but not least, you grabbed his butt. Which before he was a little uncomfortable with, but you know what? Now that we're married, we'll see how he feels now. You slid your hand down his back, lingering and caressing as you pleased. However, your touch had a purpose, and you kept going until you grabbed his butt. A shiver went through him, and he gripped your pajamas harder. You smiled at the curve of his lips. Cove twisted his head towards his pillow, and he squished his face into it, letting out a sigh. You smiled, and you snuggled up against him, both of you starting to settle from the heated moment. Cove's face remained pressed to the pillow, and you watched his chest rise and fall visibly with his deep inhales, but his arms stayed around you, holding you close. When his breathing slowed, he shifted back over and met your eyes. Cove nuzzled his cheek against you lovingly and whispered, "We really shouldn't stay up all night, huh?" You accepted Cove's judgment. He was right, you both need to sleep for tomorrow. Sleep is for the weak. Try having some kids, alright? Try having some kids. Try having some newborns. Then we can talk more about sleep. You curled up comfortably in each other's arms, ready to actually settle down for the night. Your eyes fell closed sometime after. You were not sure exactly when, only the fact that they were now too heavy to open. You felt a mixture of bitter and sweet emotions. You were happy to be here, but sad it was ending. There was a relief that you would soon be in your own home again, but also wondering when you could return here. There were many more feelings swirling around in your head that hadn't even crystallized into thoughts yet. Paradoxically, you felt nice, but also confused, but then also nice for the confusion. That's quite a sentence. In the back of your mind, you realized that you really must be tired. Unsurprisingly, your exhaustion did not give you too much time to muse on your emotions, and in what felt like seconds, you were already dreaming. The dreams dancing around your head became fragmented and faded until you couldn't remember a thing about them at all. You were growing more aware of the real world. You woke up on your own. The alarm you set woke you up. Cove was gently waking you. I woke up on my own. You opened your eyes with a smile. Groggily, you struggled to keep your eyes half open. You pouted, squeezed your eyes shut. You opened your eyes with a smile. Your rough plans for the day warmed their way into your mind. Rubbing the sleepy seeds away, you were looking forward to today. I was pretty much a morning person. You sat up fully with a big yawn, stretching your back, then your arms, and lastly your neck before accepting the day. The blanket fell to the side while you swung your legs over the side of the bed. A part of it almost got caught on your foot, but you kicked it away. Cove slipped out of the bed on the opposite side. Today would be your last day in Sunset Bird. The only thing you had planned was some family time in the old neighborhood. You figured you'd see where the day took you from there. Yawning again, you glanced back over at your clothes. There was just one more day to live out of your bag. I'm really looking forward to having my full wardrobe again. I don't have anything clean left, but oh well. Hey Cove, is there anything you'd like to see me in today? You simply started sorting through a pile for something to put on. Hey Cove, is there anything you'd like to see me in today? You're teasing and had Cove shaking his head, but then his gaze locked with yours. His smile grew and you raised a quizzical eyebrow. You already know the answer to that. An anklet? Good guess, but that's only second place. Really, what else have you ever said about that? His mouth curled into an enthused smirk. Cove clearly had some kind of setup, and now he was going to get to pay it off. Nothing. Oh. Now it made sense. Only this time, instead of that answer being a poorly worded deflection from a shy teen, it was an entirely literal statement from your grown husband. An amused smile slowly grew ear to ear on your face. Wearing an anklet. Wearing only an anklet. I'll keep that in mind then. Cove laughed boisterously at the reaction he got. Alright, let's get things going. Our families are waiting. Nodding, you and Cove swiftly finished getting ready in the small hotel room. As soon as you had your stuff together and ready to go, you were off. During the ride there, you and Cove decided to visit his dad's house first this time. When you got dropped off, Cove eagerly hopped out into the street with his eyes locked onto his father's condo. Your gaze fell on your spouse. He stood in the middle of the street where you grew up together, while the summer sun made him shine. Though he was the brightest light in your eyes no matter what. A playful grin spread across your face. It was a beautiful day and a beautiful boy. Cove stood up to his old front door and casually flung it open without bothering to knock once again. You followed it aside as he poked his head in. You closed the door behind you both. Hello? You found Cliff and Kyra in the kitchen, getting breakfast ready. Kyra was cutting an apple, while Cliff was watching a frying pan sizzle. Cove's parents waved from across the room, not straying from their tasks. Good morning, you two. Yeah, morning, and hello to you. I hope you slept well. Thanks for swinging by. You're more than welcome to join us for breakfast here, if you haven't already eaten, of course. We haven't yet, though even if we had, there's always room for more. That's my husband. Kyra chuckled. She put down the knife she had in her hand so that all her attention could be on her son. You're still my giant growing baby boy. Mom, please. Kyra didn't pay Cove's whining any mind. Instead, she put a finger up to her lip as she thought, her eyes on you, and then glimpsing towards the window.
What do you think?
I wonder. Do you think your family's eaten yet, Hark? I'm not sure. Cove and I came over here first. Your eyes flickered over to the clock in their oven. Given the time, your moms may have eaten, or they could have been having a slower morning. It was a coin toss either way. Well, give them a call. They could come over. Cove nodded, a sage expression on his face. Making them breakfast is the least we could do after how much food I ate at their house growing up.
Right.
True, bud. Very true. All right. You took out your phone. Even though your mom both had cells for years, the house number was the one that you had memorized as a kid and the first entry in your contact list. Wow, they still have a landline? Really? As the call connected, you tapped the speaker button. You figured it would be easier if everyone could hear what was going on. You heard a click and a familiar static.
Hello.
Hello, Hark. It's nice to hear from you. Hey, Ma. Good morning. I'm across the street right now, and Co's family wanted me to invite everyone to breakfast. Do you want to come over? That sounds delightful. Pamela and I can do that. Liz and Lee should be able to make it too. Would that be fine? Cliff took a step forward and spoke loudly so that his voice would be picked up. It definitely would be. The more the merrier.
Marvelous.
We may have gotten together for dinner last night, but there's no law that we can't do it again for breakfast today. Enjoy the company while you can, is what I think. Ma giggled, and you could hear some rustling over the line. Thank you. I'll let them know, and we'll be all right over. Cliff gave a thumbs up. Cove shook his head with amusement. Dad just gave a high thumbs up. I'm telling you, since you can't see him over the phone. Kyra snorted, and Ma's laughter rang out, filling the kitchen. Cliff switched the thumbs up and the thumbs up hand to instead scratch the back of his head.
See you.
Well, it sounds like we'll see you soon. Goodbye for a little while. You could feel her smile from her voice. Bye, Ma. You ended the call with a satisfying tap of the red button. Cliff's eyes wandered around the space. We better get cooking.
Sounds good.
I can help. Me too. No way, you're guests. Kyra and I have got this. She grinned. There was something playful in the twist of her lips.
Right.
I couldn't have said it better myself, Cliff. I've been in your spot before. There's no choice but to accept it. Cove sighed, but then from the sparkle in his eyes, you could see that he was entertained. Fine, we'll just hang out over here, I guess. Good. Cove walked over to the living room and gestured at the couch. You both took a seat, getting a comfortable spot to wait for food and family. Cove tilted towards his parents with his chin, then shook his head with a gentle smile, silently asking if you could believe this. All you had was a silent shrug. Time passed, filled with light chatting. Cove kept a careful watch on his parents' culinary progress and teasingly kept a running commentary. Oh, Dad add another pinch of salt. I wonder if Dad added another pinch of salt. I wonder if that was a good idea. Cliff had to raise his voice to project over the living room. He sounded very amused. It's funny that you of all people are commenting on my salt usage. We were both born and raised in salt water. Besides, I'm sure you remember back when you were about 12 and tried to make... Cove flushed slightly, but his smile remained as bright as ever. Do you really want to start talking about cooking mistakes, Dad? Because I remember a lot of things too. Like what about the chowder that was supposed to be a pie? I love it. Cove and his family were quite a show to listen to. You chimed in occasionally, but mostly you provided the laugh track. Eventually there was a rhythmic knock on the door.
Oh!
That's them! He said it loudly for his parents' benefit. You nodded and got up to greet your family. When you opened the door, surprisingly, there were no moms. Oh, yay! Our friends are back! And Derek is here too. Derek's my buddy. Not just a friend, he's my buddy and my pal. Terry stood in front with Miranda at his side. Derek waved from behind them. Hey buddies, we came to see you two before you left. The plan would have been to go over to Hark's house next if you weren't here. Luckily, you two weren't hard to find. What he said, and hi. Cove burst into happy laughter. His brows were high in surprise, not unlike how he looked after unwrapping a nice present. Wow, thanks for coming. Hello! Kyra's voice carried through the house from the kitchen. Cliff likewise projected. Great, the whole gang will be here. We just don't have Shiloh. He's the only one who's missing from this. From the childhood friends. You heard the sound of a cabinet open and shut. A pan clattered and the faucet turned on.
Are we interrupting something?
My parents, sister, and cousin are coming over for breakfast. They should be here in a few minutes. Yep, but my dad always makes a ton of food anyway. It's no problem for you guys to join in. Cove waved off their concerns before pausing with a thoughtful hum. The only real problem is, do we have enough places for all these people to sit? He peered back into the house and started counting the dining room table chairs and bar stools. 5, 6... Cliff interrupted when Cove began trying to use his fingers to connect the different chairs to different guests.
No worries.
Don't worry, some people can squish together on the sofas. It'll be fine. This really is gonna be a party. Well, I'd be happy to accept the invitation.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'd have to be crazy to skip out on this.
Thanks.
Thank you for making room. We're really glad that you came. Your 3 friends finally piled into the house. Before they had a chance to settle in, the doorbell rang. Only Miranda had sat down.
All right.
Now that has to be them. People laughed as he walked back towards the door and opened it up. He was right this time. It was your parents, Liz, and Lee, all crowded on the front steps. They squinted at the house and were surprised at just how many greetings were said. The sheer force of the chorus of hellos was impressive.
What?
How did they beat us here? How early did Hart call you? We're literally across the street. Terry snorted at your sister's confusion. He seemed quite pleased with himself. We were a surprise. We called ourselves.
Cool.
Very cool. Cliff smirked as he adjusted the settings on the stovetop. It's a little more crowded than expected, but we're making it work. Cove led the final group to complete the picture inside, and they took the chance to greet you along with everyone else. When the excited energy buzzing around the table started to calm, you had a second to truly appreciate this view. The most important people in your life all together again. Minus Shiloh. It still felt too good to be true to have everyone here. And then you noticed that Mom 3 stood back up. She clapped her hands once in a satisfying smack.
Annie.
I hate to interrupt, but I thought you'd want to know that the food's done cooking. Cliff crossed the floor to place a pile of silverware on the table, and then he dropped stuff off on the other surfaces around the rest of the living room. When he was done, he gestured towards the food.
Okay.
The plates are in the kitchen. Serve yourselves and sit where you'd like. The guests happily formed a line, and the meal was steadily passed around. Before long, each person claimed a seat in the hold and living room area. Some at the table, others on the kitchen island, and some situated at the couches. Conversations trickled across the various clusters of friends as everyone dug in. Cove finished his plate in record time with a pleased sigh. He put his fork down and surveyed the room. This is really cool. How we're getting to do this kind of thing. I like this too, Cove. I hope you'll be able to make this happen again. Of course, there'll always be more reasons to get the gang back together in the future. Yes, the 2 of you might even dare to celebrate your yearly anniversary. Every year! The smirk on Liz's face grew only wider as your moms giggled at her teasing. Ma shook her head, chuckling softer now.
Shush.
Liz, shush.
True.
Honestly, we just might. You've made a good point. It does come around every year. You should. Seriously, you deserve a big celebration for your magical day. The kids are right. You've got a lot of people who want to appreciate you. You've got to give them a chance. It is true. It's true. I know I have a lot to thank you for. There were more nods in agreement around the room, and your moms took each other's hands for support. Neither were expecting so much encouragement. We'll think about it. She'll think about it, and I'll tell Lonnie to stop thinking so hard if she doesn't agree. Pam.
Good.
Good job, Mom. Now with that settled, let us continue to enjoy this perfect gathering. Agreed. Actually, you want to know who else being here would make this extra perfect? Who am I thinking of? Shiloh? You want to know who else being here would make this extra perfect? As amazing as this was, you couldn't help but think of absent faces. In seconds, everyone curiously turned their attention to you. Shiloh, Jeremy, Baxter, never mind. I'm gonna say Shiloh. Cause Jeremy, meh. Baxter, meh. Shiloh. Unfortunately, communication with Shiloh fell off over the past few years because he just stopped responding. It was disappointing since you still wanted to see him.
Oh.
That is really sad. Hark, I know me and him aren't really talking right now, but I did learn that he doesn't go by Shiloh anymore. He only responds to his middle name, Leon. I like both names. I like Shiloh a little bit more because I feel like Shiloh is, I don't know, it just seems like a more humble name. But Leon is a cool name too. I mean, that's Brother Bose's name. Oh, that news surprised you. It seemed he had a lot happening in his life. You nodded, accepting his preferred name, and Liz smiled. Leon is kind of distancing himself from the past, I'd guess, but I get the feeling one day he'll come back around. In my headcanon, he does. I hope he does, and if he doesn't, I just hope he figures out what makes him happy. Me too. Cove's mouth wobbled nervously. He shrugged, unsure what to make of your suggestion at all. Those two men definitely never became close. It would be cool if Jeremy was here too, and it is too bad Baxter's missing from this. You left, I wouldn't even mention either of them, honestly. You left things there. There was a playfulness in Kyra's stare as she scanned the room. She slowly placed her index finger on her chin. Now that I think of it, there's something I haven't done in a while. Eyebrows are raised at Kyra's incomplete thought. She was wordlessly urged to continue. Kyra didn't hesitate. Look through all the photos Cliff has here. Wouldn't that be fun for all of us? What? Mom, why would you say that? Practically all of those photos are of me.
Very cute.
And that's why embarrassing my baby boy is just one of the perks of being a mom. Much to Cove's dismay, his mom was thoroughly entertained at his outburst. She winked in your direction. You're only feeding it... By you reacting, you're only feeding her what she wants, Cove. Meanwhile, Cliff eagerly stood up with a wave of proud affection for his son and completely missed Kyra's teasing intent.
Oh.
I think that's a great idea. Anyone else interested in the pictures?
Yeah.
I am. Lee shot her hand up before Cliff could even take a full step. Terry and Miranda snuck each other a glance before nodding with matching grins. That sounds swell.
That's fantastic.
That would be lovely, Cliff. Mom tried to hide her amusement behind her hand, but she couldn't stop the snicker that slipped out. Oh boy. I've seen them all before, but they never get old. I want to see them. You shrugged nonchalantly. You nodded. Poor Gove, everyone loves to pick on you. I've seen them all before, but they never get old. Really? Ooh, I bet there's some real gems in there. I hope there's baby pics. Don't worry, you won't be disappointed. Cove buried his face in his hands and sighed slowly. His shoulders deflated in defeat. Fine, we can take a look. Everyone happy with picture time? Yay!
Fun.
Yes! They both excitedly raised a fist in victory. Smaller cheers from your friends and family worked their way around the room, and even you bounced up to your feet excitedly. Dad flipped open his faded album of physical pictures. He held it up to his face, the corners of his eyes crinkled, and though the book covered much of his face, you were certain he was smiling fondly. One thing that my husband Colin had done very recently within the last few years is he gathered all of his home videos, pretty much from when he was a baby through him being 12, I think. They have all these home videos, and he just went through all of them and then digitized all of them onto a hard drive, which I think is awesome. Definitely saves on space, gives us a chance to take him out whenever he wants, and then he was showing me a few gems as well from his childhood, and it's really cool just to see, you know, your spouse as a little child, and we see a lot of his similarities, or we're seeing a lot of his baby and toddler videos right now, and it's really interesting to see how similar Brody and how similar our daughter and our son is compared to how he was and his sister was back in the day. He held it up to his face, the corner of his eyes crinkled, and though the book covered much of his face, you were certain he was smiling fondly. But he didn't keep it to himself long. Laying the family album on the dining table, you and the rest of the party gathered around to get a peek. Oh, beach bum. The first picture on the first page was baby Cove in a cute little onesie. There were several coos and ahs in the group, and Cliff's eyes were shiny and with tears as he sniffled. He's grown so much. Cove was such a cute kid. That's my darling angel. Nice onesie, Cove. How precious. Even as a baby you looked unimpressed. You smiled, enjoying the view. That's my darling angel. You met Cove's eye with the fondest smile, and you saw the second his breath caught. His mouth twitched until he let himself accept the compliment. I mean, of all the photos, I actually don't mind going through my old photos, especially when I was a baby and a child. It's when I went through my awkward middle school years because that was basically my super nerdy Steve Urkel phase. I pretty much looked exactly like Steve Urkel. Like, I had my pants hiked all the way up, I had my socks unrolled up to my knees, huge giant glasses, I got the braces thing going on. Like, I was just full on. Those are the toughest pictures for me to look back on. But you know, it's a part of my life, and I accept it for what it is. It's just baby pictures, toddler pictures, child pictures, you know, preteen pictures. Psh, I have zero problems, qualms sharing that with the public. Cove held himself even taller, pleased and uplifted by her comment. He reached out, placing a hand on his arm and giving him a gentle squeeze, feeling as grateful as always to be with him. Thanks, Hark. After breakfast and the photo showcase, everyone decided to stick around. Hanging around Mr. Holden's house turned into taking a walk around the neighborhood, and then for lunch you switched over to your mom's condo. It was a really good time, enjoying each other's company, but eventually the sun began to set, and there was nothing else to delay your friends and family from going home. Inside your mom's house, the home you had been raised in, the group was taking their time saying their goodbyes. It was tough for you, your family, your friends. You knew what was weighing on the mood. It might be some time before you'd see one another again. It was a pleasure having you all here, and you're welcome to come around again anytime. Ma wrapped an arm around Mom with a light chuckle. Mom leaned her head gently into her wife, and they both beamed.
I appreciate it.
Absolutely. I know we're all adults with our own hectic lives, but we appreciate the time taken to visit. Snorting, Liz crossed her arms. She leaned one hip out to the side while her lips curled teasingly. You make it sound like this was such a struggle. Some of these people still live here, and it was a vacation for everyone else. Even so, it was very thoughtful, and I hope everyone has a safe trip home. Kyra clapped a hand on Cliff's shoulder. He was puzzled as he leaned in and so he could hear her. That means you too. It's dangerous crossing the street. Remember to look both ways. Hey now. You're an all-star. Get your game on. Go, play. Yeah, good luck with all the important grown-up things I'm sure you'll have to do when you're all out of here. Definitely. I'll give updates next time something exciting happens, or something lame so I can vent about it. How nice. I'm glad Lee won't be forgetting the little people. Never ever. I'll keep in touch too.
Very nice.
You better. Well, me and Randy aren't going far, so we can keep an eye on the town for the rest of you. Nothing will get past us. Right, we'll make sure everything is okay. No need to worry at all.
Thanks.
That's kind of you. Miranda and Terry gave each other pleased smiles, already committing to their self-appointed task. Derek scratched the back of his head, wearing a pensive look. It's always sad when I have to leave this town. It happens too often, but at least there will be people looking out for Sunset Bird. That makes me feel better about it. After a pause, Mr. Holden gave the younger folks a thumbs up.
Great.
That's all great. You've got a lot to be proud of, and a lot to be looking forward to. Well said, Cliff. I'm thankful that I've been privileged to witness the growth you've undergone over the years. You've each matured beautifully. Cove was touched by his parents' words and struggled to come up with something to follow. Yeah, it's been good seeing everyone. No one had taken a step yet, and you couldn't put this off any longer. It was time to say goodbye. Goodbye. I'll see you again. I'll miss you. This was fun. Thanks for being here. I'm so glad we got to do this. Me too. Today was even better than I imagined. I don't know what we're gonna do without the kids around. I know, they keep us young. We're not that old. Some of us still got it. She winked at Cliff teasingly, and he shook his head. Both of your moms laughed at that, and you caught several more cracks of smiles among your friends. I had my children later in life, and I mean later compared to my parents at least. I was born when my dad was 29. My first child was born when I was 38. So, I mean, I'm not that old to start having kids, but I just think to myself, when my kids are like in their 20s, I'm already going to be in my 60s, so I'm hoping that I'm still going to be able to be like, I hope I'm still going to be able to like do activities with them, do fun things with them, stuff like that. She winked at Cliff teasingly, and he shook his head. Both of your moms laughed at that, and you caught several more cracks of smiles among your friends. Afterwards, there was more sniffling and hugs, a lot of hugs. Then people started trailing out into the street, seeing others off. Your friends and family got into their cars and left the neighborhood. By the time things had fully settled, you realized that the sun had set. Earlier, you and Cope decided on having a car pick you both up. Neither of you wanted to bother your parents after such a long day. It would be a little while longer before it would be there, though. It was the right choice, as both sets of parents shot you wary looks. The four seemed ready to call it a night. It didn't take either you or Coe very long to assure them that it was okay to head home and go to bed. With one more round of goodnights and goodbyes, your families returned to the condos. Then the only people left in the street were you and Cove. Cove closed his eyes, humming happily, while he waited for it to pass. He stared up at the sky. Cove's hands were in his pockets and his shoulders relaxed when he caught your attention with a tilt of his head.
So...
Can you guess what I'm thinking? Well, at that moment you were in the neighborhood you grew up in together with some time to spare. Go to the hill with the Fireflies? You rolled your shoulders back and pretended to crack a few of your knuckles. An amused look fidgeted on Cove's face while he observed you silently. Could you perhaps be thinking that the Fireflies are out now? There we go.
Right.
That's how we end it. That's how we're going to end this. Always at the Firefly Hill. Right. Do you want to go to the Poppy Hill before we leave? Always. Doesn't even give us a choice. There was an eager bounce in your step as you and Cove crossed over towards the hill behind your mom's house. Side by side, you stared out at the view in awe. By his mom's house? Over my mom's house. Yeah. Side by side, you stared out in the view in awe. As you imagined, the hill was dotted with the glowing firefly light. It perfectly reflected the memories of childhood held closely in your mind. Cove sighed contentedly, seeing them across the hill, weaving in around the blades of grass and the stars above. Cove cocked his head to the side before his expression twisted playfully when he met your eye. You were about to prod him about what was on his mind when he took off running. I bet I'll catch one first. Oh, it's on. You laughed and watched him try to catch one instead. You cheered him on. You went chasing after the next firefly that caught your eye. Oh, it's on. Kicking up a bit of dirt and leaves, you bolted in the opposite direction after a few fireflies had captured your attention. The first one that flitted into your range, you dove for it. Did you get one? It escaped between your fingers, but that didn't dim a second of your fun. You shook your head, trying to find your next target. The next one, I can feel it. Unless you're feeling my future victory. Out of the corner of your eye, you watched Cove get spun nearly around, following one that was staying just out of reach. Chuckling, you crouched down low, searching the air. The pursuit for fireflies continued until a handful had been caught. Cove crossed over to you with a bright grin that could rival every twinkling bug and star around you. Cupped between both his hands, Cove carefully held a firefly. The corners of his mouth twisted before a few giggles escaped him, and you knew that feeling well. The way the firefly would buzz around, tickling the palm of your hands. Cove's eyes fluttered open, meeting yours. He watched you with a complicated mix of emotions, heavy with the weight of 15 years of history, of memories. It's really a relief that I got to see the fireflies. This trip wouldn't have felt complete without it. Yeah, I think you're right. You spotted it's a tradition. You spotted another firefly lowering to your eye level before looking up at the top of Cove's head. It landed right on his hair, and you smirked. What? You have a very tiny firefly hat. I do? Before you could answer, the firefly took off and disappeared into the night. You gave it a tiny wave goodbye. Well, that didn't last very long. That's too bad. I'll remember them as my tiny hat forever. Me too. Taking a deep breath, Cove held your eye. He appeared to be conflicted about what he wanted to say next, and you waited for him to make his choice. It's so strange not to live here anymore. Most of my life, neither of us were ever really away from Sunset Bird. Well, unless one of us went onto a trip somewhere. Or when both our families took trips together. Remember that? He chuckled, losing himself to fond reminiscing. You couldn't help but match his grin. I like that road trip one a lot, though I don't think we all could squish into that RV again. We're way too big. Laughing, Cove shook his head. His brow creased the longer he sat with the thoughts of spinning in his brain. Those visits back then with my mom, I remember what a big deal they felt like then. To be away from here without anyone else coming for a whole few weeks. Oh, how little I knew. Hey, what did you used to tell your mom about me when you were on those trips to see her? We were so innocent then, you nodded. Hey, what did you used to tell your mom about me when you were on those trips to see her? Thrown a little off kilter, Cove hadn't been expecting that question at all. Both of his eyebrows raised, and a part of you wondered if you had somehow spoken gibberish instead. Honestly, I've been wondering about it since I was 13. Kyra always kept the details to herself, and you never said a word either. Well... Cove couldn't meet your stare for a second longer. Bashfully, he turned away and his voice grew smaller. Mostly I'd tell her about the times we'd hang out, but I know I was pretty enthusiastic when I was because you are someone really special to me. And I admitted that much to my mom. Not sure if I used the word crushed exactly, but she knew that you were the highlight of my young life. And look at that, you still are. He delivered that final thought earnestly, enough that you stopped breathing altogether. Cove beamed at you, pleased with his confession. Thank you. You're welcome, and thank you for being my favorite story. So sweet. Cove's such a sweetheart. Finally, Cove parted his hands and released the firefly back into the hill. It flew up around his face before darting away up into the sky, but your gaze was fixated on him. There was a touch of wistfulness in his features as he watched the bug disappear into the night. It wasn't until Cove turned his attention back to you that his demeanor warmed. Okay, I'm ready to go now. Yeah, I think I'm ready too. I'm not. Do we have to go? You nodded. You shook your head. You nodded. A part of you didn't want to leave that poppy hill, but you knew it was time to go home. Trailing a few steps behind Cove, you looked back down the hill. You spotted your childhood home immediately. I'm grateful we could come home here and see how things are without us. It was nice.
Yeah.
It really was. With Cove right there along with you, you made your way down the hill. With the same stars above trailing the way, your last night at Sunset Bird was closing out. You were lost deep within a dream, adrift in the current of your unconscious mind. Cove was with you even there, his presence strong as your mind flitted from scene to scene, the logic of the conscious world melting around you. Something jolted you from your slumber, the visions you'd constructed slipping away even as you scrambled to catch them. It had been a good dream. You opened your eyes to an unlit, unfamiliar ceiling. The darkness permeated the room so thoroughly that you were sure it was still the middle of the night. As your eyes adjusted to what little light there was to catch onto, a smiling face cozied itself right above you. There he was. Good morning, Hark. The grin was bright enough to make it seem like maybe the sun had risen after all. Good morning. Wow, it's my dream come true, you said sarcastically. Oh, it's my dream come true, you cooed. What you've got up your sleeve? What have you got up your sleeve today? Please stop being a morning person, you groaned as grumpily as you could manage. What have you got up your sleeve today? You knew you were about to experience one of Cove Holden Angel's plans. His expression softened at your voice, the tender affection in his gaze obvious despite the dim space. You kissed him, you flicked his nose, you ruffled his hair, you pulled the covers over your head. You kissed him. Propping yourself up on your elbows, you leaned in towards him. Cove read the intent of your movement and bent down, meeting you halfway in a kiss. Would have you preferred me to wake you up by tapping on the window? Yes, no, maybe. I'd have preferred neither. Ha ha, you're so funny. Cove smiled, simply smirked, amused by his own wit. I do love how Cove's sense of humor has definitely been greatly improved, worlds improved, throughout the course of this story. That is one thing I appreciate about his evolution.
Come on.
Is a sense of humor. Because I find anyone with an amazing sense of humor very attractive. You really should have expected this was going to happen. I did. I was waiting for it. I had hoped you might have outgrown it. Fine. Shame on me because you got me more than once. I did. I was waiting for it. Good. Glad I didn't disappoint. I'm guessing you woke me up for some reason. Are you ever going to let me know? Well, this is our last day here. Everyone might still be asleep. But if we get up now, we can at least see the neighborhood. Do you want to? Of course. With you, definitely. And the reason that you didn't tell me this plan last night is... Here we go, yet again. You just nodded. I doubt I'd have a choice here. Of course.
All right.
Great. Then he held out on one of those hands to help you get up. Too. You took it. You held out both arms, wordlessly asking him to lift you up. You shuffled out of bed without assistance. You took it. Cove's grip was strong as his fingers closed around yours. He pulled, tugging you up with ease. Before you could head out, you and Cove both needed to get dressed. You did so quietly. The strangeness of the hour meant that your body seemed less coordinated than usual, each article of clothing a new puzzle, but you managed it. The two of you were eventually ready to head out into the wide world. Dawn still hadn't broken when you left the hotel, yet it was easy enough to get a ride down into Sunset Bird. The journey was peaceful. You might have expected sleep to attempt to claim you once again, with the sky still so dark, but Cove's excited energy was infectious. Morning was finally starting to come over Sunset Bird as you arrived, almost like the sun itself wanted to be there to welcome you. Cove turned towards you, his eyes sparkling with anticipation. One more summer beach trip? You laughed, nodding to reassure him, as if there was any alternative now that you were here and he was looking at you so eagerly. Yeah, one more. You could have taken your time getting there, dawdling under the morning sun, or you could have taken the short walk at a regular pace. And both those would have been just right for some other occasion. But this time, without either of you saying a word, you and Cove set off sprinting. The two of you tore gleefully down the street towards the beach, as excited and as ungainly as the kids you'd once been. You were laughing with joy and at the absurdity of it all, being here at the break of dawn with a boy who you'd once discovered on the nearby hill who never completely grew up. As it was still early, you did your best to keep the noise down. To the side, you saw Cove covering his mouth to stifle his own giggles, similarly aware of the people sleeping in the condos around you. You thought of what the mean old not grandparents would have said if they could see you now. All you could do was continue running and stumbling down towards the beach, away from the residences and their sleeping occupants. It was only a few minutes before you arrived at the expansive ocean shore. Cove kicked off his shoes and strode right into the water, not stopping until his feet were entirely submerged and the waves tickled his ankles. You stood close by in the damp sand. You got into the water with him. As long as I don't go deep into the water, I'm gonna go into the water with him this time. After slipping your shoes off, you let the sea flow over you. It was cool against your skin, but not as cold as when the wave pulled back and your wet feet were exposed to the air again. I do enjoy wading in the water. Wading is fine. The two of you stood there, watching as the sun continued its ascent over the horizon. Silence fell between you until finally, dawn had fully broken. Even then, Cove spoke in a whisper.
Wow.
I can't believe it's over. I can't either. How are we already at this point? It all went by too fast. Boy, you really sound like a kid again, you joked. I think it was good enough. You shrugged, you nodded. How are we already at this point? It all went by way too fast. A ghost of a smile crept over Cove's face, like the sun peeking out between clouds on an overcast day. Cove reached out and enveloped your hand in his, pressing your palms together tightly. The silence returned, just for a second. I'm glad we came this morning, and that we came on this whole visit back.
I'm so glad.
But more than anything, I'm glad for ending up in this town in the first place, where I got to grow up with a really nice neighbor. I wouldn't have wanted any other life. I'm most grateful for meeting you. Thank you. Thanks for being here. You smiled at him. Yeah, I'm gonna say thanks for being here. Cove looked over at you out of his corner of his eye, not turning his face away from the sea. His expression was full of affection, from the gentle curve of his smile to his clear, contented brow. It was a stark contrast in the tears rolling down his cheeks.
I love you.
I love you. I love you. You counted yourself lucky. Even though you were leaving now, this place had gifted you with so much that you'd carry with you wherever life might take you. The memories you'd made, the lessons you'd learned, the people you'd built relationships with, you'd keep those pieces of your life in Sunset Bird forever. You stood with Cove, silently watching as bright rays swept away the last of the night's shadows until the day truly arrived. Your spirits were high as the sun rose ever higher in the sky. The two of you had found yourselves meandering back to the neighborhood street on sandy feet, strolling down the path just as you'd done thousands of times before. This entire section is like the Return of the King. Like, there's so many ending fake outs. There's so many times where I'm like, oh, okay, it's ending now. No, we're still going. Very Return of the King. This was where it all started. You were compelled to look at the exact spot you'd first encountered Mr. Holden, sitting dejectedly on the curb. He wasn't like that anymore. Still, you couldn't forget the day it began, just as you couldn't believe what an adventure it led to. Things had never been the same since that moment, and you couldn't be happier for it. Your mental lingering on that meeting had turned physical, causing you to stop in your tracks. It was only when you heard Cove's voice calling your name that you remembered when you were, and realized what you'd done. And what a present it was. A shining sun, a clear blue sky, and Cove, James, Holden, Angel by your side. All the most natural things in the world. So, what's the next step? You watched Cove expectantly, waiting for him to guide you forward from here. There was a crinkle around his eyes as he laughed. It's up to you now. Ooh, exciting. You're giving me too much power. I don't know, but I don't want it to be. You should pick. You clowned up. You're giving me too much power. Aren't you worried about it going to my head? Cove smirked, shaking his head.
It's okay.
Don't worry about it. I'm listening, so go ahead. His eyes met yours, holding your gaze. I believe in you, Hark. No matter how much time might pass, there were some things that you could count on to be constant. Cove, your family, his family, and all your other loved ones being there for you when you needed it was one of those things. Since the beginning and for always. For beginning and always. Title drop. Knowing they were there, you would never be truly alone. It made the future look all that much brighter. Could we go to Poppy Hill? Want to find somewhere private to make out? Do you want to keep walking and go through town? Want to grab something to eat? We should see who can reach the end of the street fastest. I just want to wait and see what happens. Part of me wants to do this just jokingly, and I'm so tempted to pick this, but realistically, I would say want to grab something to eat. Your early morning escapade had stirred up your appetite, and you were positive it would have for Cove as well. Cove nodded, his gaze shifting from you to roam across the little place that you both called home. There's a lot still out there in the world, a lot of different ways things go in the future. For this, I think that'd be the perfect choice. You beamed, his approval of your suggestion lifting your spirits ever higher. Your days growing up in Sunset Bird had been so wonderful. Even the prospect of leaving again made your chest ache, yet you weren't going to let that stop you. It would be hard, but you knew that it would still be there, waiting whenever you wanted to return. Facing Cove, who had been by your side through it all, you knew that one day you'd look back on these moments now just as you fondly reminisced about your childhood growing up here. Each happy moment you experienced became only a memory of what used to be, but that was what life was, and it was okay. As it was from the beginning, and continuing that way for always, life took another step forward. Thank you for beginning a life here. Aww. You can come back again always. Aww. The end. Aww. That's so sweet. Cool. Wow. So that's it. Our lives beginning and always. Our life beginnings and always. There's still more, I believe, of this game, because I heard that they're supposed to be. First of all, there's the wedding DLC, which I don't think has been released yet as of this recording. There's another DLC that I think is meant to be. I don't know solidly what it's about, but from what I've read, it's supposedly a quote-unquote spicy, zesty DLC. I could be wrong. That's what people have been sort of like hinting at. But yeah, those are those two DLCs specifically for the Cove romance, and I say that because there are other DLCs planned to allow us to romance other characters in this game, which I think is amazing and awesome. Because as many of you know, ever since I met this character, I wanted to romance the Snot. Besides Shiloh, I wanted to romance more so than Shiloh, way more so than Shiloh. Although I love Shiloh as a character, like even way more so than Shiloh, I wanted to romance the Snot out of Derek. So that's going to be super exciting. I definitely am planning on Let's Playing a playthrough of that. But in the meantime, like, just giving my thoughts of this game after beating the main parts 1 through 4, I am so impressed by this game. This is definitely has been a very thoroughly unique experience. I played a number of these visual novel dating sim games over the course of the last several years, because it's always been a guilty pleasure of mine. I've always enjoyed them. But this one truly stands out on its own in terms of its depth and uniqueness, because of the fact that you do progress through different stages of your life. I think that's the biggest thing, is that most other visual novels just stay within a certain time frame, a specific time frame. But here you actually go from childhood to adolescence to your teens to college, you just to being an adult, and that is really genius concept. And I really do feel like they give you so many options. They give you so many options throughout the game, which is why sometimes, like, if I was to critique this game, is that sometimes when they don't give you an option, which I feel like are obvious places to put options, or if they railroad you in places that obviously feels railroaded, it's a little jarring. But I can't overall like complain about that, because the vast majority of this game, you pretty much are given the freedom to customize your character, even Cove's character, and even your relationship with Cove. You don't have to be in a romance with him. You can be in a platonic relationship with him. You don't have to be like the, quote unquote, like extroverted or introverted or aggressive or passive. You can choose, you can decide. There's so many things that you get to decide, so many responses. There's so many decisions that you make that matter, in the sense that they're at least mentioned, that they're mentioned later on in the game. I mean, a big obvious major decision is, I think, when you finally reveal to Cove about his dad paying you to be his friend. If you ever do. I mean, I'm wondering if you can actually go through the entire game without ever revealing it to him, but I have a feeling that even if you kept it a secret, it'll come up eventually, is my guess. So, I mean, I think definitely takes the storyline to a very dramatic change, depending on when you do that, which I think is really cool. So, obviously I've only played through this once, so I've only seen like a hint of how your choices matter, but it really does feel like a really unique experience, and I think they did such a great job with this. Cove, as I said, you could sort of shape him to be a little more passive, a little more aggressive, a little bit more athletic, a little bit more intellectual, a little bit, which I think is awesome and very smart. And it's a really delightful storyline. I love all the different moments, obviously, and how each moment doesn't necessarily have a quote-unquote plot or conflict. It's more of like, this is a slice of life. We're just taking a peek on your day-to-day, and I really like that. Some people might find that boring, because it's like there isn't really anything happening other than first we go to the store, then we go to the beach, then we go to the, a lot of it is just, boom, 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 different beats, but I kind of appreciate like the fly in the wall approach that this game has, because it doesn't have to always be a conflict. You don't have to always be constantly fighting with your boyfriend or fighting with your spouse, or having some sort of like, for the most part, like you and Cove's relationship always remained very solid. And I guess if I had to make a second critique about this game, it would have been, again, maybe a lot of it's because of the choices that I make. So I'm saying this without knowing that I actually know what I'm talking about, because I don't have the evidence to back it up. But I'm hoping if the game didn't have this, if the game didn't actually do this, my critique would be to have more opportunities for you to be in conflict with Cove, like having some relationship issues that you have to work through, because for the most part, like, no matter what you do, he's for the most part agreeable to you and very forgiving, but I could be wrong. Maybe all of it's just because of the dialogue choices that I made. Maybe if I made different dialogue choices, there would be a little bit more tension, a little bit more like rivalmance between you and Cove. So who knows? We'll see. I'm very curious to see what would happen if you specifically chose all of the mean choices, with Cove, that you were clearly like not getting along with him, or clearly like avoiding him as much as possible. So you're not even like in a friendly relationship. You're more like, I don't want to have anything to do with Cove as much as possible. I'm curious how much you can do that with a game like this that seems to be so centered around his character, because look, you're looking at the main screen and he's right there prominently, so I don't know how much you can get away with just avoiding his character completely. I mean, we kind of was able to avoid him a bit when I decided, like, at the library, like in stage 1 or part 1, to like not hang out with Cove and instead hang out with Shiloh and Liz. So I really liked that the game allowed us to do that, so that we weren't always like attached to Cove's hip, which, as you know, is not something that I like to do in real life with my significant others either, and neither does Colin. My Colin doesn't like being attached to my hip either all the time. So yeah, I mean, the art style was great. I do feel like the music did get a little bit repetitive by the end. I mean, it's a long game. This is probably the longest. I think the only other like visual novel that rivaled how long this game was Camp Buddy. So, and that also is like one of my absolute favorite like visual novel games. Overall, in terms of fun, I'm slightly more leaning towards Camp Buddy being favored over this, simply because I think I just really like all the options of Camp Buddy. There was a little bit more of a plot, which again I don't need, but it does make it a little bit more interesting and exciting. And certain paths were just amazing. And with Cove was a great path. I feel like, though, that if Derek was available from the beginning, I feel like I would have had a touch more enjoyment pursuing Derek, because in real life, I think I would have gotten along and became good friends with Cove in real life, but I feel like if Derek was in the picture, realistically, I would have gravitated more towards him romantically, just because I think Derek's more my type. And not just physically, it's not just physically, but also personality-wise. I think we just would gel better together as a couple. But they did a great job with Cove. I enjoyed my romance with Cove, and again, I'm looking forward to the wedding DLCs and all the other DLCs surrounding his romance, but I'm also looking forward to the ability to date other people, just to see how that would have worked out in a different universe, specifically with Derek. We'll see if I ever play the game that Shiloh's in, because I am curious to find out what it would be like to actually date and romance Shiloh. He seems like he's got some issues to deal with in his game, and it sounds like all of the characters have some issues to deal with, so that's something that I may not necessarily be all that thrilled about, because I do like stability in my characters, which is like why even through BioWare games, for example, I do prefer the quote-unquote Boy Scout characters, the one that don't have as much baggage, because, you know, I'm not one who particularly carries a lot of baggage myself. I don't carry a lot of baggage. I don't really like drama, and therefore, if I'm dating someone, I would prefer that they didn't have baggage or a lot of drama following them. And I have dated some people who it's fine if you have drama, but if you many of the times are the reason that there's drama, are the cause of a lot of that drama, just because of the decisions that you make, that for me is where there's a problem. If you're consistently making choices to cause drama on yourself. And that's not Cove. I'm not saying that that's Cove, but again, the reason why I like the Boy Scouts with zero to little baggage, those are the characters I tend to go towards. And Derek, I like how outgoing he is. His personality, it just, like, we just gel really well. And he's a good looking guy too, especially, I mean, look at him when he grows up to his adult. So, yeah, he's very sporty. My husband's sporty. It makes sense. I mean, I married someone who had a lot of Derek's personality. That makes a lot of sense. But yeah, let me know what you thought of this game. What are some of the things you loved about it? What are some things that you think would be great for them to improve upon, or if maybe would have been great if they had done differently? I'm really curious. I really think this is a very special gem of a game that just really, they decided, we can either go big or go home, and they went big. And they're still doing it. As of this recording, they had just celebrated their 1-year anniversary of releasing this game, so congratulations. Thank you so much to all of the people who were involved in this project, like all the coders and the writers and the artists. Thank you to everyone for putting this beautiful masterpiece together. I thoroughly had a great time. I'm looking forward to more later. Thank you to all of you people who are watching this particular Let's Play. As I said, this is a much longer visual novel LP than vast majority of the visual novel LPs I've done. So if you actually stuck through it all from the beginning to end, thank you so much. And really, even if you just jumped around, if you didn't watch the whole thing, you just jumped around and picked different pieces to watch, it doesn't matter to me. I am super grateful to you regardless. So, whew, such a great, I really enjoyed it. It was so great to be able to share with you things that triggered in my life personally from this. I think that's the big beauty about this game is being able to like relate to a lot of things that were happening through the life of my character and having that trigger memories from my own experiences and sort of living through those experiences again and sharing them with you, which I hope you all appreciate. Those moments where I pause, because I know I am notorious for pausing from the LP and just talking about random things that pop into my head, but hopefully they all are related to what's happening in the game. So it's not like I'm just randomly coming up with something random like pigeons and doves. The whole pigeon and dove thing was really weird, but I'm like, that's exactly something I would do, would just say some random thing. But anyway, thank you all so much for watching. Tune in next time when I hit more of the DLCs of this game. And until then, everybody, love yourselves and love each other. Mwah.